In April of 1943, over a strip of mud and water on the Black Sea coast, German fighter pilots saw something they had not expected to see. A Soviet fighter climbing toward them, not running, not circling helplessly over the front, climbing. For almost 2 years, the Luftwaffe had treated the Eastern Front like a hunting ground. Its fighter wings had produced names that still sound unreal today: Erich Hartmann, Gerhard Barkhorn, Günther Rall. The three highest-scoring fighter pilots in history would all come out of the same German wing, Jagdgeschwader 52, flying the Messerschmitt 109 over Russia and Ukraine like the sky belonged to them. And then the sky over the Kuban started to change. The change did not begin with one miracle machine. It did not begin with one heroic ace. It began when a new Soviet fighter, a new set of tactics, and a Soviet Air Force that had learned through catastrophe all arrived in the same place at the same time. The fighter was the Yakovlev Yak-9. The place was the Kuban bridgehead. And in 8 weeks of air combat so dense that hundreds of aircraft could be fighting over one village, the Luftwaffe learned a brutal lesson. The Soviet Air Force was not prey anymore. To understand why that mattered, you have to remember what the war in the air looked like when it began. In June of 1941, the Soviet air arm was not defeated in the sky first. It was smashed on the ground. German bombers and fighters struck Soviet airfields in the opening days of Operation Barbarossa and found aircraft parked in long, neat rows. Fighters, bombers, reconnaissance machines. Many were destroyed before their pilots even reached the cockpit. The ones that survived often flew into a worse problem. The planes were old, the pilots were rushed. Some had only a handful of real flying hours, and the doctrine was almost designed to get them killed. The early Soviet fighter formation, the Troika, put 3 planes into a tight V. It looked organized. It looked disciplined. It also forced 2 pilots to stare at their leader and worry about collision instead of watching for Germans diving out of the sun. Then came the low patrol orders. Soviet fighters were often chained close to the troops below, circling where soldiers could see them, low over the front line, slow enough to reassure the infantry. That reassurance had a price. A slow fighter at low altitude is not guarding the battlefield. It is bait. For German pilots, those first years created a terrible confidence. They could dive, shoot, climb away, and come back again. Soviet formations broke. Soviet pilots died. The numbers climbed so high that individual German victory tallies began to look less like combat records and more like arithmetic from another world. But the Soviets were not standing still. They were bleeding. And they were learning. By late 1942, the Yak-9 was entering service. On paper, it was not the most glamorous fighter of the war. It was not polished like a British Spitfire. It was not built with the industrial luxury of an American Mustang. Much of the airframe still used wood, plywood, and fabric, because Soviet factories did not have aluminum to waste. A German engineer looking at one in a workshop might have sneered at it. A German pilot meeting one over the Kuban had less reason to smile, because the Yak-9 was exactly what the Eastern Front needed. It was light. It was simple. It was quick where the fighting actually happened, down low and at medium altitude over armies, trenches, river crossings, and supply roads. Its Klimov engine gave it roughly 1,200 horsepower, and later Marks could push beyond 400 miles an hour. It climbed well enough, turned well enough, and most importantly, it could be built in numbers that Germany could not match. Before the war ended, more than 14,000 Yak-9s of all types would leave Soviet factories. That was not a boutique fighter. That was a flood. The standard Yak-9 carried a 20mm Schwack cannon, firing through the propeller hub, backed by heavy machine guns in the nose. That mattered more than it sounds. Wing guns on many fighters had to be set to converge at a chosen distance. Fire too close or too far, and the pattern spread away from the target. The Yak fired through the center line. Point the nose. Pull the trigger. Everything went where the pilot was looking. For a young Soviet pilot who had survived just long enough to become dangerous, that was a gift. And then came the version that sounded almost unreasonable. The Yak-9T. The T model put a 37mm NS-37 cannon through the nose. 37mm in a single-engine fighter. To make the gun fit, Yakovlev's engineers had to move the cockpit back along the fuselage to balance the weight. It carried only around 30 rounds. The recoil was vicious. A long burst could kick the nose offline and bleed speed like the aircraft had struck invisible water. So it could not be fired like a hose. It had to be fired like a rifle. 2 rounds, maybe 3. Close in, hold steady, let the target fill the sight, then hit. A single 37mm shell could tear apart a bomber, wreck a locomotive, or punch through a target that machine gun fire would only scratch. It was not a magic weapon. It punished bad aim, it punished panic. But in disciplined hands, it gave Soviet pilots a killing blow the Germans had to respect. Still, an aircraft alone does not win control of the sky. An aircraft needs the right battlefield. The Kuban gave it one. Find the Black Sea on a map. Move your eyes east along the coast toward the Caucasus. There, around the Taman Peninsula and the marshy Kuban River Delta, the land breaks into waterlogged flats, reed beds, lagoons, villages, rail lines, and defensive positions pressed into mud. In the spring of 1943, after the disaster at Stalingrad, German forces in the south were pulling back. But the German 17th Army did not simply vanish. More than 250,000 men held a fortified bridgehead on the Taman Peninsula. It protected the approaches to Crimea and kept alive the fantasy that Germany might someday push again toward the oil fields of the Caucasus. The Germans called their line the Gotenkopf, the Goth's Head. The Soviets called it the Blue Line. For the men on the ground, that name mattered less than the sky above it. Because whoever controlled the air could decide what moved, what burned, and what survived on that crowded peninsula. So both sides poured aircraft into a narrow strip of airspace. The Luftwaffe sent Luftflotte 4 under Field Marshal Wolfram von Richthofen, one of Germany's most respected air commanders. It brought Jagdgeschwader 52, more fighter units, Ju-87 Stuka dive bombers, and the new Focke-Wulf 190. The Soviets answered with the 4th Air Army under General Konstantin Vershinin, elements of the 5th Air Army, Black Sea Fleet Aviation, Guards fighter regiments, Yak-9s, La-5s, P-39 Airacobras, and Il-2 attack aircraft. At peak strength, the Soviets had roughly 700 to 900 aircraft in the region. The Germans could usually field only a few hundred. On the worst days, 300 or 400 machines could be turning, diving, burning, and climbing over the same patch of ground. Imagine trying to fight inside that. Not a clean duel at 10,000 feet. A sky full of wings. Tracer crossing from every direction. Stukas diving. Il-2s grinding toward the front. Messerschmitts cutting through escort formations. Yak-9s dropping out of altitude. Burning aircraft falling through the very formations still fighting below them. Parachutes drifting through smoke while other pilots kept shooting because the battle had no pause button. Men were killed by enemies they never saw, and this was where the Luftwaffe's old confidence began to crack. The first phase opened around April 17, when the Germans attacked the small Soviet beachhead near Miskako, close to Novorossiysk. The Soviets called it Malaya Zemlya, the Little Land. It was a miserable strip of coastline held by Marines under constant pressure. The Germans wanted to erase it. They sent in Ju-87 Stukas, wave after wave, the same screaming dive bombers that had terrorized armies since 1939. At first, they came in with the old arrogance. Then Soviet fighters arrived in force, and the old pattern stopped working. To understand why, you have to meet the man whose tactics shaped the battle even beyond the aircraft he personally flew. Alexander Pokrishkin. Here is the important detail. Over the Kuban, Pokrishkin was not flying a Yak-9. He was flying the American P-39 Airacobra sent through Lend-Lease. But the story of the Yak-9 over the Kuban cannot be told without him, because the method he refined there spread across Soviet fighter aviation. It turned every capable Soviet machine, Airacobra, La-5, Yak-9, into something more dangerous than it had been the day before. Pokrishkin was not just brave, he was analytical. An engineer's mind in a fighter cockpit. For 2 years he had watched bad tactics kill Soviet pilots. He had seen troikas destroyed. He had seen fighters ordered to loiter low and slow over infantry. He had argued with superiors, filled notebooks, sketched angles, calculated how altitude became speed, how speed became choice and how choice became survival. His formula was simple enough to fit in 4 words: altitude, speed, maneuver, fire. Simple words. A revolutionary order. Altitude first. Soviet fighters would no longer sit low and wait to be bounced. They would climb. They would hold height. They would stack formations in layers, with one group watching another. Height meant energy. Energy meant life. Speed second. Pokrishkin wanted fighters moving fast, weaving, searching, refusing to hang in the air like targets. A fast fighter could attack or escape. A slow fighter could only hope. Maneuver third, but not the old flat circle. He favored vertical fighting. Dive, strike, climb, reset. A pilot who turned endlessly down low with a Messerschmitt was often volunteering for the German pilot's best game. A pilot who fought up and down changed the geometry. Fire last, not spray, not panic. Close in and shoot in a short killing burst. One pass, one decision, then out. On April 29, during the fighting around Krimskaya, Pokrishkin showed what that meant. Leading 8 Airacobras, he struck a German formation of Stukas and escorts from above. When the fight ended, multiple German aircraft were falling, and Pokrishkin himself claimed 5 in a single day. His group came home without a loss. 2 years earlier, that would have sounded impossible. By the Kuban, it was becoming the new Soviet argument. Krimskaya was the center of the storm. The village sat near a key rail junction inland from Novorossiysk, part of the hinge of the German defensive system. When the Soviet 56th Army pushed there at the end of April, both air forces threw everything they could spare into the sky above it. This was when the Yak-9's qualities began to matter at scale, not as a lone wonder weapon, as the right tool inside a changing system. Picture the Soviet fighter screen now. High above, top cover weighted in the sun. Below that, another layer patrolled, ready to dive. Lower still, fighters guarded ill-to-attack aircraft as they moved toward German lines. For a German pilot, the old attack path had become a trap. Dive on the low aircraft and something above might fall on you. Break away and another Soviet group might already be positioned across your escape route. Try to climb and you might find the top cover waiting. The escape routes that had once belonged to the Luftwaffe were being occupied by the enemy. The Yak-9 fit the new pattern beautifully. It could climb into the layer, it could dive with speed. Its centerline cannon rewarded close, controlled firing. It did not need to win a long, elegant duel against Germany's best aces every time. It needed to make the sky dangerous from more angles more often, for pilots who had grown used to choosing when a fight began and ended. And the Soviets added something else they had lacked in 1941: control. Early warning radar, including Rus-2 redut sets, helped detect German formations. Ground observers tracked movement. Radio networks passed warnings. Controllers directed fighters toward incoming raids instead of leaving each group alone to find the enemy by luck. For the Luftwaffe, that changed the feel of the battle. In the early war, a German formation could strike a local target and exploit Soviet blindness. Over the Kuban, it increasingly flew into an organized response. Fresh Soviet squadrons were vectored into the right airspace. Fighters were stacked where they were needed. The sky began to behave less like open hunting ground and more like a trap with moving walls. German aces still scored. That must be said honestly. The best German fighter pilots remained extraordinary. Jagdgeschwader 52 did not suddenly forget how to fight. Hartmann, Barkhorn, Rall, and others continued to claim kills. They were not defeated because they became poor pilots. They were defeated because personal brilliance stopped being enough. That is the brutal mathematics of air war. If one German ace shoots down 3 Soviet aircraft, but the Soviets can replace all 3, and the Germans lose one experienced pilot they cannot replace, the scoreboard is lying. Kills are not the same as control. 100 victories in a logbook do not matter if the enemy still owns tomorrow's sky. Over the Kuban, the Luftwaffe began paying a price it could no longer afford. Pilots were killed, wounded, captured, exhausted. Aircraft were lost to combat, accidents, overuse, and the grinding tempo of repeated sorties. One group of Jagdgeschwader 52 suffered severe pilot losses after the fighting intensified in mid-April. Even future legends were not untouchable. Hartmann claimed victories over the Kuban, but in late May he collided with a Soviet WWII during the chaos and had to crash land. That detail matters because it strips away the myth. The Kuban was not a clean contest of heroes. It was a machine that ate pilots. The numbers from the battle are still debated because both sides overclaimed in the confusion. Soviet claims ran far higher than confirmed German loss records. Modern estimates usually put German aircraft losses from all causes in the hundreds, perhaps around 400 to 600. Soviet losses were heavier, at least 700 aircraft and likely more. So this was not a cheap victory. It was not a clean victory. It was a victory because one side could survive the price and the other side could not. Soviet factories beyond the Urals were now producing aircraft in enormous quantities. Yak-9s and La-5s were arriving faster than Germany could remove them from the war. Soviet training had improved. New pilots were still inexperienced compared to veterans, but they were no longer being thrown into combat with nothing but obsolete machines and suicidal formations. Germany faced the opposite curve. Too many fronts, too little fuel, too many demands on too few aircraft. Every veteran lost over the Kuban left a hole that a raw replacement could not fill, and the Soviet fighter in front of them was no longer helpless. By late May and early June, the final phase of the Kuban air battle unfolded over the blue line across the Taman Peninsula. The pattern was now set. Soviet pressure did not stop. Fighter cover tightened over Il-2 attack aircraft. German supply roads, field positions, and movements came under increasing air attack. The Luftwaffe could still contest the sky locally, still sting, still kill, but it could not restore the old order. By June 7, the great air battle over the Kuban was effectively over. The strategic meaning was larger than the bridgehead itself. For the first time in the war, the Soviet Air Force had taken air superiority from the Luftwaffe in a sustained battlefield struggle against first-rate German opposition, and held it. Not for one raid, not because of weather, not because the Germans failed to appear. For weeks, against experienced German pilots, over ground both sides needed. That is why the Yak-9 mattered, not because it alone broke the Luftwaffe. No single aircraft did that. The Yak-9 mattered because it arrived at the moment Soviet air power stopped being merely numerous and started becoming organized, tactical, and replaceable in the way modern industrial war demanded. It gave Soviet pilots a fighter that could fight where the Eastern Front actually lived. Low enough to matter to armies, fast enough to survive, simple enough to produce by the thousand, and armed in a way that rewarded courage with precision instead of waste. The Yak-9T added something even more frightening. A cannon large enough to make one hit decisive if the pilot had the nerve to wait for it. But the aircraft was only one part of the transformation. Pokrishkin's tactical revolution gave Soviet pilots altitude, speed, maneuver, and fire. A way to stop presenting themselves as targets and start controlling the fight. The ground control network gave them eyes. The factories gave them mass. The training system gave them a future, and the Kuban gave them proof. In 1941, Soviet aircraft burned in rows on their own airfields while German pilots swept east. In 1943, over the reed beds and muddy villages of the Black Sea coast, Soviet fighters climbed into the sun and forced the Luftwaffe to look up. Hartmann would go on to claim 352 victories. Barkhorn and Rau would finish with numbers almost beyond belief. Jagdgeschwader 52 would remain deadly until the end. But after the Kuban, those victories belonged to a different kind of war. The Luftwaffe was no longer expanding its control. It was defending what it had left. The Yak-9 did not win the Eastern Air War by itself. It did something more important. It proved the old German certainty could be broken. And once the Soviet pilots had taken that sky away, the Luftwaffe never truly got it back.